I'm left-handed. It's great. Yep, and then backwards. Thank you very much. Good evening. Sorry for the delay. We're having a little technical trouble. We asked them to bring down the electronic whiteboard, which they did, but you need a room number to hook up to it, and we have no room number since it's a portable board. So we've improvised, and Kelly came to the rescue with the typical old-fashioned way of doing this. I'm Superintendent Marie Doyle. I'd like to thank you for coming to our kindergarten forum. Our committee members and school committee members are here again to hear what your concerns are, to hear your input before we move forward with the very important decision about full-day kindergarten program. The purpose of the meeting tonight is to share the findings from the committee. We'll talk again, a quick overview of the curriculum changes that you'll see coming from the Common Core. The Common Core is going to dramatically change the expectations for kindergarten children, which is why we think we need a full-day program. We'll talk about the survey results. Kim just reported that as of today, we have 340 participants in the survey, which is unbelievable. You just never get those results. So this is definitely something that people are very interested in. And then we'll talk about the financial impact and what that looks like as we begin to unroll what could be a full-day program. The purpose tonight also is to gather information because we have not made a decision. The committee will bring forward a recommendation to the school committee. I will bring forward a recommendation that I think is in the best interest of the kindergarten program as well as the entire district. And we'll talk about that a little bit when we get to the financial impact, because this decision cannot be made in isolation. It's about a total district, all of our programs, and we'll be talking about that with financial impact. The kindergarten curriculum. You can see by just some of the highlights that we've picked out in reading. We're going to go through reading, writing, and math to show you what the expectations will be for our little ones. By the end of kindergarten, they should be able to read longer, complex stories. You see it down lower, it says 10 to 20 pages. They're talking about children's books, but to be able to manipulate a book, to go through 10 to 20 pages, and to be able to understand the concepts in that book. They should be able to read more complex stories, and they do mean read. They don't mean just follow along. Compound sentences conjoined by the word and include more word endings, compound words, multisyllable words. And they should be able to process abstract or unfamiliar ideas. If you go deeper into the curriculum, they'll talk about prefixes and suffixes and other parts of speech that were never introduced in kindergarten before. In kindergarten, they're going to be expected to write, literally write. And by the end of the year, they should be able to compose an opinion piece. They should be able to tell you their thoughts on something and to explain why they think that way. Through drawing, dictating, and writing, be able to compose informative and explanatory texts. And they should be able to narrate a single event or several events and tell about the events in order in which they occurred and provide a reaction. That's pretty complicated writing for even an older child, never mind kindergartner. So this is the foundation that they'll get for the upper grades. But again, you'll see the increase in writing expectations, and you'll see the increase in the reading and the math. So for math, by the end of kindergarten, they should be able to count to 100 by ones and tens. That used to be 20. So the expectation has gone from manipulating numbers up to 20 to 100. Compare sets and numerals using vocabulary, greater than, less than, equal to. Describe measurable attributes of objects, length and weight. Solve addition and subtraction word problems and add and subtract within 10. And they should fluently add and subtract within 5. So I think that we can all say, wow, this is going to be a lot for the little ones to take on. Okay, what we did then was the committee put together a survey. We looked at the curriculum. We called this meeting because we had more information on the expectations. Once we did homework on the Common Core and saw how much was being added to the curriculum, we thought we needed another meeting. Because at this point, when you see some of what the expectations are, we could go on for pages. This slideshow was originally 62 slides long, and we cut back. But if you took the Common Core in each of these subjects and just took the highlights, you could do 10 slides on reading, 10 slides on writing, 10 slides on math. So we cut that back just so you can see, get an overview of what's really happening. The next thing we did was we surveyed the parents, and again, we have the 340 responses. All Longmeadow parents were invited to respond via Alert Now. We used the district website and elementary school websites. All PTOs and PTAs distributed links and weekly information. There's a local mums club that distributed this as an email to the parents of younger children. and the library and Longmeadow News posted on Facebook pages. So that was our outreach to get as many responses as possible. There were questions asked, would you support or oppose changing the kindergarten program in Longmeadow Public Schools from a half-day to a full-day program? The criteria used was A through E. Everything from strongly supports down to E, I'm not sure. So, would you support or oppose changing the kindergarten program from half-day to full-day? You can see that over 60% support changing to a full-day program. The people that strongly opposed were about 10%. Opposed somewhat, 10%, so you have about 20% there. So and you have, 70 for support, strongly is support, and you have 20% for opposing it. So there's a clear majority that think we should be looking at full-day kindergarten. If you had to pay for a full day of kindergarten, would $2,500 be an acceptable amount? Yes, 42%, no, it was over 50%. And this one was probably one of the most interesting pieces of data that we got from the parents. Many, many, many parents feel that the program should be free. That if it's something that the children need and it's part of their education and important for other grades, that we should pay for it. Again, this decision's not being made in isolation. I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but that was an overwhelming response from parents, and we heard that loudly and clearly. Survey results. If a full-day kindergarten program is implemented, do you think that the parent guardian should or should not have the option of placing their children in a half-day program? 50% said they should have the option to use a half-day program. 35% said they should not have the option. And then you had almost 20% that weren't sure whether or not they should or not. That's an interesting question, because what happens in first grade if somebody's not in the full-day program? What happens if there are huge gaps and you have a certain number that are way behind? What happens to the classes and that? Will the kids who don't go to a full-day program catch up with their peers? Because the curriculum is so laden heavy now with getting that strong foundation for first grade, would there be impact? So this was interesting to see. We saw that many favor the full-day program, but how many would choose the half-day is something that we need to look at. The state requires us to pay for 2.5 hours a day, because that's what they mandate, 2.5 hours, and for regular education we have to pay for 6 hours a day. So do we have to pay for full-day kindergarten? No, we don't. Should we, or if we could, I would pay for it immediately. If there are other obstacles, which we'll talk about, then you'll see what some of those blockades are. But the other question of half-day just by choice is a question that the committee really has to explore and come forward with a recommendation on that. If half-day kindergarten was offered as an option but not at your home school, would you be interested in participating? No. It was almost overwhelmingly that you have just about 70% that do not want to leave their home school. And we have a proposal to make about that, in that about 25% would rather go to another school to have a full-day program. I think, as people probably know, that Blueberry right now has the largest population, and there's some overcrowding, and it would depend on the numbers that actually enroll for kindergarten whether or not we could fit everybody in a typical structure in that program right now. If you had to choose between Longmeadow Public Schools offering a half-day kindergarten program or full-day, which would you choose? Half-day, again, we have about 18%. Full-day, we have probably 75%. And then you have probably a little under 5% that aren't sure. So again, the full-day program is strong, coming through in all the questions strongly that people prefer the full-day program. Here's just a policy, the law that we work with. So the mandatory school age is 6 years old. We have to provide 2.5 hours per day tuition-free for kindergartners. Districts can opt to offer full-day kindergarten either tuition-free or fee-based. The state defines full-day kindergarten as a minimum of 850 hours per year, and districts may charge tuition for hours beyond 425 hours. Now, this is done differently throughout the state, and that's when we delved into the data so that we can explain why Longmeadow may have a problem providing full-day kindergarten, but Springfield may not. There are variables in different communities that make people eligible for things like grants that help bring in revenues to support programs. In the area, East Longmeadow charges $2,650 for a full-day program. And then other like districts, which we'll talk about in a minute, vary $1,800 to $4,200. We have like districts, Reading, Littleton, Wayland, and Wellesley, examining full-day kindergarten, but they're weighing their options. We have some limitations in that the town manager has put out a directive that we are to maintain a level service budget. What that means is that you get your budget based on and have just the minimal increases with it. It does not allow for creating new programs unless you cut existing programs. So if we were to implement a full-day kindergarten, we would have to cut. We would have to cut other programs that are existing. All right, the current financial impact. Did I miss the like districts? Okay, I'm just going to move ahead for 1 sec. There. This is a map that shows you full-day kindergarten throughout the state of Massachusetts. If you take a look, the beige is tuition-free full-day kindergarten. And notice the western part of the state. It's almost all free full-day kindergarten, which is why I think many of our parents are reacting strongly. You should pay for this, everyone else is. But if you take a look at the eastern part of the state, particularly the well-to-do districts, they're charging fees because they're not getting grants from the state to help them cover that. So that's important for you to know. Longmeadow is a high-achieving district. It's affluent. Socioeconomically, we're in a different place than our neighbors. So that's why we're not eligible for the same grants that they are. We're eligible, but we don't get the funding. We have, in the light orange, 8 communities that charge between $1,000 and $2,500, 60 communities that charge $2,600 to $3,600, and I have actually a larger chart. 21 communities that charge $3,700 to $4,900, and then you have 20 communities where there's not full day even available to their constituents. The one thing we did find from the data, approximately 1/3 of all the towns in Massachusetts do charge fees. But again, you go back to that map, it's hard to believe given the western part of the state where fees just are not being charged. Here's our current enrollment and what's happening right now. We have currently half-day enrollment, 116 students, full-day enrollment, 57 students. In total enrollment in kindergarten is 173 in the current class. We have 7 half-day sections and 3 full-day sections. What we do not know about this data is how many kids are in private kindergartens throughout the town. We don't know how many are in daycare programs or they're in private schools elsewhere because we don't have full-day kindergarten. We do know that there is a bump in first grade where we have a lot more students registering that are coming back to the district from other placements. So we have these numbers to go by, but we also have this mysterious number in first grade that we're never sure what the number is going to be by the end of the summer. So if we go to full-day kindergarten, we might run into the same problem where we think we're going to get 170 kids and we could end up with 200. Teacher information. Right now we have 4.5 teachers. We have, at the cost of $368,911. And we have some funded from the $141,690,000 from the private kindergarten expenditure. The classroom assistant information, we have 4.5, almost $100,000. And again, private from the general fund, and then another $40,000 approximately from the kindergarten fund. Supply and indirect costs, we have almost $10,000 from the private funding, and we have indirect costs that come from the fund of $25,000. So if we look at next year, based on everything that we know and all the research we've done, this is what we're anticipating. We would need 4.5 teachers for an appropriation of $286,000. For the classroom assistants, we'd need another approximately $80,000 for a total of 9 teaching assistants. This is a model that is based on the assumption that Blueberry has 3 sections. And that is the big if in this whole scenario. Because if Blueberry has an increase, there's number 1, not room for another classroom. And then number 2, if there's an increase, it means we have to hire another teacher and another aide. I'll talk about this in detail, but the only way that I could see avoiding that would be to have 3 kindergartens at Blueberry with class size of 25 with 3 adults in the room instead of 2. So that the ratio of adult to child would be 8-to-1, but then children could stay in their home schools. You could be with your neighborhood students. They'd still have that response in the class, so that would be the way I could see of making it work for Blueberry. So, and we still don't know if we need that extra section, but if we do, that's an option that we're going to talk about with the committee. The only other option would be to send students to schools that are not in their neighborhood. So we're assuming that each position costs $60,000 for a teacher, and that an assistant is $16,000. And again, that Blueberry only needs 3 sections. If a 4th section were added, that would be $76,000. If we add the aides, as I just suggested, 3 sections of 25, we'd only need $40,000. So it would be a cost savings as well as staying in your neighborhood school and having experienced teachers there. The other increase would be because Blueberry would need the 4th section, we'd need to increase the specials, the art, the music, physical education, and technology. Again, if you have 25 in a class, you take this entire cost out because the aides would travel with the kids to the specials. If you put in a 4th section, then you also need to increase the special subject areas, and that would cost you about $40,000, okay? So as with the information we know today, it will be total teachers 9.6, and it would cost approximately $403,000 to run the full-day kindergarten program. Also, the classrooms that we're opening up would need new materials, supplies, furniture, things like that, so that would be a one-time startup cost of $30,000. If we did tuition fees, $2,500 to cover the program with an extra $20,000. $2,000 would be short. That would be $346 when we need closer to $400,000, and $1,500 would leave us very short. This is just, again, more information. I'm going to talk about our like districts. This is from 2010 because the way you get your information is from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. You go on their website. The most recent information they have is 2010. They need to update their site. But it still gives us a sense of who's going full day back in 2010, plus who's paying tuition. The only one in the area charging tuition is East Longmeadow. And again, they're in at exactly the place that we were thinking we would recommend for a payment if that happens. There are like districts, and they're defined by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education as districts that are similar. It's similar socioeconomics, similar academic performance, all kinds of similarities in those communities. And Longmeadow does not really have a like district in the western part of the state, and you will be pleased to know who we're like. We're like Wellesley. We're like Wayland, Reading, Medway, Marblehead. So you see districts that they're well-to-do districts. They do extremely well when you do public testing, but they also, they're perceived as very, very successful, academically successful districts. So let me give you one thing that just happened. Wayland, there's a new superintendent, and he put in for full-day kindergarten. And he put in for several other programs. They went forward to try and not get fees, and they went to fall town meeting to vote. They lost. So that there's not going to be a full-day kindergarten. So we have to be careful in making assumptions that even though people really want it, are they going to support it financially? That's something that we're balancing all the time with the committee. There are others, for example, I think it's the next slide. Well, there are several communities, Wellesley's looking into it, Wayland's looking into it, that don't have full-day programs either. So that's the anomaly. You saw how few communities did not have full-day programs, and yet it's the well-to-do districts that don't do it. We've been able to get by without full-day kindergartens because we have highly educated parents. You read to your children, they go to museums, they're well-educated at home, so that we've been able to close that gap. If you're in a city like Springfield where they're not as fortunate to have, usually 2 educated parents and they're not out doing all those things that raise your academic awareness, then the full-day kindergartens have been necessary, as well as Head Start programs and things like that. But now with the new Common Core, we don't believe that we should rest on our laurels any longer. We see on our MCAS a slight decline in the MCAS in the elementary school, and we begin to think now that this difference of not having a full-day program might be impacting the kids a little bit more than we thought. I'm not going to go through these because I'd rather have time to talk to you, but I'll put this on our website. These are all survey comments that you made, and we've looked at them and we've talked about them. We have most people saying that we should have it. We have most people saying that we need to find a way to fund it. We have people talking about children still need time to be children. It can't be all about academics, and we know that. That's part of the reason you go to a full day, is to make sure you have time for that as well. And it's just a lot of comments like that, which I'll put on. So at this time, what I'd like to do is open it up to questions and answers. The cable TV is here so that they ask that you come up to the microphone so that people at home who are watching will be able to hear your questions as well. So let's have a dialogue. Anybody who has questions or comments, come on down. Don't be shy.
I'll just get it started. I'd actually have a question for the kindergarten teachers. I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about how the full day program may change. So my name is Michael Bressi, 164 Meadowbrook. I don't know the protocol here. So I've had 2 kids go through the full day program currently, and I have 3 kids. No, 2. Anyways, I got a lot of kids. And I'd like to hear how the full-day program is going to change with this new potentially full adoption to it. Because my understanding before is actually the fact that there was a half-day program in some ways held back the current full-day program from really being able to expand its curriculum and do certain things, because there needed to be a kind of common experience. So I'd like to know how you're going to adopt it and change it to deal with the core curriculum, and what maybe new and exciting things will happen.
Let me handle that, if you don't mind, because we've talked about this. There was a time when the full day went in where the teachers were told that they should keep pace whether they were full day or half day. It was not realistic, and behind closed doors the teachers would tell you that couldn't be possible because they were working with the students all day long. But I'm not going to put them on the spot by bringing them up to tell you that. So that the perception in the community is, why come to our program? You're only getting a half-day service even if your kids are here full day. But I know that when I go to visit classrooms, they're working, they're on technology, they're doing all kinds of things. And then the second part was the curriculum. Over the summer, we'll pay teachers to come in and write curriculum and to take a look at the new Common Core so that they're ready to roll in the fall. And then they'll disseminate that to their peers before the summer ends. Is that everything?
I guess it's fine. I mean, I would have liked to hear a little bit more tangible answer as to what will change. But
okay, come on up. Come to the microphone.
Since I've had 2 of your children. I'm Karen Blasey, and I teach the full-day kindergarten at Center School. And I would say in the last 5 years, so your older son I had, 3 years ago, and then, so it's just in the last 5 years that our reading program changed as well, even before the Common Core came. So now what a typical kindergarten looks like right now for anyone who has a child in kindergarten is more what first grade looked like. I mean, we're doing sight words, we're doing phonics, we're doing short vowels, we're reading. Children are expected, according to the reading program, to be at a level D, which is what Marie showed you before about how there's more text on a page. In the math, the Common Core has changed where now we are working with numbers 1 through 100. We're doing more addition and subtraction. So the curriculum is changing for us, and we're, trying to keep up with it. So all day long, yes, I am very, very busy. And I just think it's going to continue to change, and we're going to continue to, make our day fit. So I think you probably even notice the difference between when I had your first child and then last year when I had, your current first grader, of just what was expected. So hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Karen. Other questions?
Hello, I'm James Gebhardt. I just wanted to say that, taking the survey, I really nearly had a rage attack because it was so inadequate to, just the little boxes that you had to choose from. I wanted to leave most of the questions blank and just write a couple page missive, but I couldn't do that. So, you kind of skipped over all the comments. I wanted to actually read those. Can we see those on the screen?
Sure.
But I think the survey,
and that's just a sampling. There were hundreds upon hundreds of comments, which were all great.
Yeah. No, I just think that it's very misleading. You say, like, are you in favor of this? And you really had to choose yes or no. But it really depends on what the program's going to look like, So I don't think we can say we're in favor or not until we know what it's going to be.
What are your questions about what it would look like?
Well, I said this at the previous meeting too. Right now my kids are in K-SWAP. I'm sure a lot of people are, and those are great programs. Plus, I'd say the majority of the town probably goes to some sort of a preschool program. They're coming in at a pretty high level. The Common Core, I can see how it's an advancement over the past, but my daughter could read very well entering kindergarten, and it's really like not going to advance her to do the even up to the requirements of the Common Core. In the K-SWAP programs, they're learning French, they're doing art appreciation. A lot of, their math that they were doing was much more high level. I feel like when you're coming in from that, then this is actually a deceleration rather than, a step up. And if that's the way the program's going to be, then I'd prefer to keep it as it is, do a K-SWAP, and kind of keep everything as is. If it's going to advance everybody up to the higher level, and I do think it needs to be free, but if it's going to be that way, then I'm all in favor.
I think when we have full day, we'll have more opportunity to expand what we're doing. Right now, there's just no way to do it. I know my last district, we put Spanish in kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. I would love to see that here. It's, again, financial right now, but we're still thinking about that and working on that. But once we come to full day, there'll be far more opportunity to be creative around what we're doing. So in terms of, I did read your response actually too, and you had some good suggestions.
Yeah.
But here are some that you can see right now, and you really need to go online to see all of them because there are so many comments that were good.
Okay.
Important to meet the Common Core. Half-day kindergarten is unique to Longmeadow, which they saw as positive. That a lot of learning needs to occur through play. Learning centers promote learning through play. All can be done in a half-day program. Switching schools is definitely not a family-friendly option for families with multiple children. Families completely opposed to full-day kindergarten under no uncertain terms. Curriculum needs to change, it's inadequate. The children entering 1st grade from the half-day program are not where they should be academically. The majority of the country has already switched to full day, and it's sad that we're lagging behind. Longmeadow needs to step up its rigor and get on board with the rest of the state. Longmeadow is no longer a top performer statewide, and the lack of an approximate early childhood education program is a big part of it. Benefits of a full-day kindergarten program, and would like their daughter to take advantage of this, but unacceptable to pay for it. It should not be mandatory to pay for public school, period. Funding for a full-day program should come from the participants, not the taxpayers. Most school systems have full-day kindergarten programs which do not require an extra fee. Why should we? Should not come at an additional charge. No other year does. $2,500 would still place Longmeadow as one of the highest paid for full-time kindergartners. Why? If full day is required to meet curriculum, there should be a fee for families. There should not be a fee. I agree with offering more spots in a full-day program, but that's only an option and it costs money. I think it's unacceptable. Okay. Is it illegal to charge a fee for attending a public school? How many cities and towns in Mass offer a full-day kindergarten program for no charge? As a taxpayer and parent, believe that kindergarten is important but should not be offered at a fee for a family. It should be paid for by the town. Thanks for evaluating what's best for the little ones. Even if a full day is not possible, hope the committee will modify the current lottery policy. Strongly believe we should do full day. Think that taxes I already pay should cover the cost like most towns. If the cost of this program is spread out around taxpayers, then I would support it. If the plan is for kindergarten parents to foot the bill, then I'm against it being mandatory. Should have it so they go into first grade prepared. Do it similar to other towns. So,
Yeah.
and they go on and on. We really took a representative, you can see. We took some that were even negative to put them up there. There were very few negative comments, by the way. Just that one I read.
Yeah,
But
thank you for showing that.
yeah, so we'll put them on, but you can see all the comments that were there. We have them all written down.
They're all on the website now?
They will be.
Okay.
We'll post them tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Amy. I feel funny talking to the microphone here. My question is in regards to, it's more of, I think, I don't know if it's the law or the state in regards to the money, because that seems to be a hot topic for paying. So, and I don't know how this all happens, but once the state of Massachusetts accepted the Common Core standards, and clearly a 2.5-hour day isn't long enough to implement that in the kindergarten level, was it discussed, and I don't know if you know this, at the state level, how towns and cities are going to afford it if they're not going to be paying for it?
There's a disconnect right now with the state, the Department of Education, and what's really happening in towns and communities. We're getting tons of mandates with no support financially or understanding the training it takes for staff, the time to write curriculum, where you get the money for all of that. So no, I wish that they were more cognizant of how this is impacting us, but they're not.
So is it something, and I know working with the government and the state is a big issue and it could take years, but is that an avenue that Longmeadow could take addressing the state? Because I feel like it's a state, if the state accepted the Common Core and we are all doing that, they should be able to provide the public schools with a full day. Like, they shouldn't be able to say you only can pay for, you have to pay for the 2.5 hours. I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, but if they're accepting it for everyone, then they should be able to also support financially all the school districts to be able to do that.
They should, but they're not.
So is that something that our local government can take to the state? I don't know the whole process of it, but that's where it seems like it should go, because to tax the people in the town or to make people pay for it, even if you start doing it that way, then what incentive does the state have to ever cover it if it's getting paid for already?
The superintendents have been extremely active in responding to these mandates from the state and for making decisions without completely thinking through the ramifications for the towns. We right now send 10 superintendents to every Board of Education meeting so that we're listening and giving our input. We sent 90 superintendents down in June to speak with the governor about the goings-on with the DESE. And you might have seen Mitchell Chester came out in the newspaper and basically said that the superintendents were complaining and whining. that they didn't want to put these initiatives in. It's not about that. It's about the reality of how it's impacting everybody. The teachers are scrambling. They're coming up with so many initiatives. So we're very active on it, but you have the Board of Education, you have the legislature that has input on that too. So we're trying to work with all the groups to see if we can bring some resolution to some of these mandates.
Okay, so
But there's no talk of paying for kindergarten. Every time we bring up the fact that we don't have enough money, for example, there's a kindergarten grant. And the kindergarten grant is the reason that the districts that are not as well-to-do have been able to do this, because they've been funded by the state to do it. But if you're a well-to-do community, you don't get the money the way that the lowest socioeconomic districts do. But even that grant is going away. So here they are putting in the Common Core, increasing standards, and they're taking out the grant that's supporting this. So there has been a rise in the number of people charging tuition for full day, and I think you're going to see even more of a rise at all districts because this grant is going to dissipate.
Okay. Yeah.
Not good news.
No, I was going to say, well, it's just disappointing because I mean, I know you believe this and feel this way, but if the standards are all increasing, the kids, I mean, they need to be there more to be able to learn. And I think it's hard emotionally for parents also to, like, when there's a choice, I think there's a lot of emotions that go with it versus if the state just mandated full day kindergarten, paid for it, then that's how it is. And it isn't this debate of, do I want to send because I think for a lot of people, it's not whether they want to send their child or not, it's that they want the best for their child. And if they're not going to get the full education in 2.5 hours, then they need to be there for 6 hours to be prepared for school.
Yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay.
Hi, I'm another Amy Appel. So I'm part of the 15%, and my survey is actually the second one on there, part of it. I believe fully in half day, in part because I was an educator who specialized in curriculum. So there's one aspect of it, and the other reason is because we came from Holyoke where they had a full day kindergarten, and it was actually more intense than first grade is here. So when we moved here for first grade, my daughter was like, oh my gosh, it's so much easier than last year. And that's not a positive in my mind because her kindergarten experience was so intense that she actually hated school and cried every single day, every morning and every night, and was a complete mess, which is actually part of why we left. And so I knew Longmeadow had half day, and I'm like, they start off low pressure. They understand child development. So I'm really concerned that knowing that curriculum and state standards change every few years, we jump on it thinking this is going to improve our test scores, yet we're not taking into account what is developmentally appropriate, especially for kindergartners. And so I want to know how you're taking that into account, because I feel like a lot of people I spoke to who voted for full day, they voted in fear that their children were not going to be prepared. And I know that works very well in a town like this, that people are very afraid that their kids aren't going to be competitively successful. And so I felt that in the survey. And a lot of people I spoke to said, well, I voted for it because I don't want my child to be behind. But that's not what is always best for young learners, and keeping them enthusiastic learners as they go through, and less stressed.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are stressed, they're anxious. So I just want to hear a little bit more, because Common Core is another one of those things that's used to threaten schools to do something different, do something more intense.
Okay.
And I don't think that's what we need.
The teachers are very clear that social development is critical. Play is part of their socialization skills, and that they need to focus on that. They're clear that they're 5 years old and that they need rest time. They take rests after they come in from lunch for the full day program. So they're crystal clear that's all part of the program. The full day gives you a chance to let them be kids and not feel the pressure you're going to feel in half day if you have to cover so much in a half day. But that's been a major part of the discussion from the teachers, that we make sure that we let them be children.
Great. And I'm just wondering if other different types of teaching and learning have been explored in terms of being able to do more, maybe do more in depth in a half-day program as well. Which I wrote up there about using more learning centers where they're playing yet they're learning at the same time.
Come on up.
Even though I hate microphones, I'm coming up.
Me too.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Brien. I am the full-day kindergarten teacher at Blueberry right now, but for years and years and years and years, I was the AM/PM. I actually find that the kids in my full-day program this year are less stressed because we have 6 hours, so we get the great learning, but we also can take breaks. We're building a community, which you don't get to build in 2.5 hours. They play with each other, they rest with each other, they have lunch with each other, and it is magical.
Okay.
Where if you were there 2.5 hours, even before the Common Core, it was 100% you're in there. And if the kids got 10 minutes to play, that was a good thing. And so now, I mean, Marie was in my class, there's structures and blocks, there's sand going on, there's Legos, which is all learning. But also, we are able to do the writing, we're able to do the sight words, we're able to just do all the Common Core, but we do it at a much slower pace. And honestly, the kids love coming to school, and they wish they could be there even longer. So I think if you came to the classroom and you saw the full day, it's not really, it's rigorous, but it's more relaxed than the 2.5 hours.
Okay, thank you for
Yeah.
describing that.
And it's so much fun, really.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura.
Hi.
I just wanted to make a quick point is that, you know, we just recently set back the birthday, you know, from December to September. So I'm one of those moms that just wanted to make the point that, you know, I have September 7th birthdays, and there is a big difference. You know, I used to have a March birthday, so I just wanted to also bring up that date that, you've got the older kids now that, there is a big gap, and these kids they're ready for, these September birthdays are ready for a full day in kindergarten. And so I just wanted to make that quick point.
I come from a middle school background, so I have opinions on that. My sister has boys that are August, 2 of them, and she put them in at 4 years old. And I said, please don't do that. She said they're ready. Intellectually they were, socially they were. And then when they hit middle school and high school, they hit the wall. So she moved to South Dakota. She repeated one of them because it was the perfect time to do it. Her other son is an all-star pitcher on the baseball team and does not have a friend in the entire school because he is socially at a whole another place. He's grown enough to be the athlete. He still would be even better in a year, but she kicks herself every single day that she didn't retain those boys. So there is something about giving them more time to develop, and especially when they hit middle school, it's the social, it's the emotional. They mature differently, and that's where you can really see a difference. So,
Well, the September 7th cutoff made me keep back my July birthday, who needed, the time. And he's in kindergarten now, and he's flourishing and would love to be in full day.
all right.
So.
Marie, could you also tell about that bullying woman? The woman that said how the most that we could do is teach kids how to play because of
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
At our last forum?
Yeah.
We had a woman that works in the area of bullying, and she got up and asked us to reiterate that a lot of bullying problems can be solved through play, teaching children to play the right way and to appreciate each other and to get along. And that's another reason that time in kindergarten is very important, because you can have that play, those workstations, those areas where they're being monitored, and you can help them develop those skills early on and reduce bullying. Hello.
Hi, I'm Jean DeLiso, and I'm a parent of Blueberry. My son is in the 1st grade. He did do the full day program in kindergarten. I deal with my son today and currently this morning that said, Mom, I don't want to go to school. I don't like school because it's too long and I'm bored. And I think he understands that. So I'm really happy to hear the curriculum's going to be picked up. Yes, I'm a Longmeadow parent that's probably type A, so I might like that. But it is good to hear because he was reading when he got to kindergarten and he was bored. So I'm kind of happy to hear that. You put a lot of numbers and presented a lot of numbers on that board as to what it would cost. And if the advancement of the private pay won't come, or we're not going to get it, you said you'd have to cut a lot of programs. So could you speak a little bit to what you potentially would cut out of the program and out of the schools?
Okay, budget season's beginning, so I'm going to give you an overview of what was discussed in the past 2 years, what was added, and that's usually what's the first to come out. I can't speak with accuracy because I go to my team, we go through the entire budget, we make suggestions, it goes to the school committee, and it's a long process. But I think what might be in danger is literacy support and math support that's there for all of the elementary school students. We've been able to put in technology support at the elementary schools. There's a ton of things that we've been able to add there that impact all the children within the school. We'd have to look at class size across the board. Would we want to cut teachers, raise class size, and therefore do it that way? But that's usually not a popular option either. You could reduce offerings at the high school. We were just ranked number 413 in Newsweek for being an exceptional high school. Do we really want to cut courses and opportunities for students there? None of them are popular choices. But we'll go through this. We'll go through every single possibility. If there's a teaching assistant that we can let go, if there's reduction in supplies that we can do, we'll look at every single thing to see what we can come up with.
How does the town budget play? Because I don't know a lot about the town budget for you to go and request more money for the schools within the town itself.
It starts with what we just got, a budget directive that comes from the town manager. So he says level service. That means that we'll build in the pay raises and we keep our programs exactly as is. When we need more money than that, we go back and forth with the select board and the town manager, and we discuss whether or not, for example, last year it was about $300,000 that we felt we needed to maintain the program. The select board did not agree with us and did not want to take it from free cash or other avenues that they had. So at that point, it went on the ballot, and people overwhelmingly voted for the $300,000. So it goes through select board. They can decide whether or not to fund it out of their existing budget, or they can support us for an override, or they can have us go and just ask, and it comes up, it's a mandate by the town that the select board comes up with the money, which is what happened last year.
So a chance to do that again, to implement full-day program with kindergarten?
It's a possibility.
To go that avenue instead of coming to the parents individually?
Yeah, we'll go to the school committee, and we're listening, so. Okay. And I guarantee you we'll do everything that we can, because I understand taxes are high. I get that. People pay a lot. They give a lot. They're always supporting PTOs and LEAF, and we're always asking you. It would be my desire to do it free, but I can't stand here honestly and tell you that we can do it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Nicole Schwanier. I have kids at Center School in Williams. I agree with Amy about the developmental issues that are at play here, and I don't really think that spending that extra time will play out in third grade testing. I think that a lot of kids throughout kindergarten and first grade, they're a developmentally diverse group, and I don't think that's going to change by them spending significantly more time in the school building than having the access to the opportunities that we are already providing for them as parents. But my question is related to what you were just talking about a moment ago. When you say that if it came to a vote and families were not willing to pay this extra money, et cetera, that then we would be talking about specific cuts from that standpoint. Is there going to be more discussion or a vote about whether or not we'll be doing this at all? Or will the vote be specifically focused on whether or not parents are going to individually fund it or the town is going to fund it? Is this a done deal at this point, or are we still talking about it?
All this information goes back to the committee. We sit down, we will take in every single piece of advice that we've received. They will make a recommendation to me. I will make a recommendation to school committee. And at that point, we will be in budget season to see what possibilities there are around that. But it will be a decision ultimately between the school committee and me.
Okay.
Do you say school committee in May or school committee and me?
And me. And me.
Okay,
you having a problem with this Boston accent?
No, I'm just having a problem hearing. I apologize for the kids. I'm sorry. I will try to
Hi, I'm Yujie. I have a question for the teachers. So during the years, we have kids that are attending the half-day kindergarten and full-day. When they come to the first grade, second grade, third grade, do you see a difference in their performance, both academically and socially?
Well, the first grade
Microphone.
Sorry. That's okay. Your question would probably be best answered by the first grade teachers, but in our committee meetings, we did discuss that. The principals were actually, went to the first grade teachers. And I think what's happened in past years, what we used to notice was their sustenance. They were able to, go through a full day without, at snack time, asking, is it time to go home? Because they were used to being in school for a full day. They were used to having lunch in school. And, I can't honestly say to you that there was an academic, curve where the kids in the half day were below the kids in the full day. But I think because we're all noticing in the past 5 years or so that the curriculum is changing, the half-day teachers are working their bodies off, trying to get in everything that's expected. So I think it's great to say that in first grade, I don't think we're seeing a great shift. But we would just like, I think it goes back to what Nancy said, we would like to have time for both. We'd like to have time to do all the academics that we need to do, that the kids are ready to do, but we'd also like to have the time for them to play and rest and, develop a community. So I don't know if any of the principals want to say anything about first grade.
Could we have a principal come up, one of our elementary principals?
I'm Marie Pratt, principal at Blueberry.
Neil Guile, principal at Wolf Swamp Road School.
I think it's really difficult to answer that question, partially because we have so many kids that go to another program. So although they're only a half day with us, many of them are in a full day program. So it's really then hard to tease out, in first grade, that information.
Yeah, the one thing I would add is, just in terms of looking at the kindergarten programs, I think it comes down to a certain level of equity when you look at the full day programs compared to the half day programs, and just seeing what we can provide in that full day classroom versus the half day. There is a certain there are certain differences in terms of the pressures. Someone was alluding to earlier. I look at the pressures on the half day programs to constantly push themselves to get through the necessary curriculum to stay up to par with their full day counterparts. So that's what I would add.
Yes.
I'm Janet Nowak. I'm a Blueberry Hill mom, and I've actually had a child in the full-day kindergarten last year. It was a wonderful experience. And I had a child, my son, who's now in third grade, did half-day, and I supplemented with another program 3 days a week. And, the outcomes really were different only because they're very different children. So I can't really speak to that aspect of it, but I do wonder about the equality piece. And if, in fact, moving forward, we continue to have a half day with parents who can't supplement, what about inequality? Maybe it's a small percentage, but there is a small percentage of the population who will not receive equal education.
Oh, we would definitely set up a fund or leave it part of the budget to make sure anyone who is eligible for support would receive that.
Okay, and so that, obviously, that has been thought through, and I don't know how, but I'm just thinking I don't know how soon this will be resolved, but over the years, if we continue to have half day with these new expectations in terms of the core curriculum, and those children not maybe who are not in supplemental programs, because a parent can't afford it, and I do know some families in the community who purely do half day and that is it, then how would that, I'm just wondering, well for those families? Like, I'm just
No.
curious.
We've
Well,
had-
I'm just saying if in fact it's going to take longer for this decision to be made.
We've talked a lot about that, and the equity was absolutely critical, that a child should not be deprived of the opportunity because there's a financial burden. So it's the same way with free and reduced lunch and that. So we have mechanisms where we could say, if you'd like to, we'll find scholarship money. The other piece of that is, we were talking about parents that want to put their children in half-day, that 15%. Would we make a binder of activities that the parents, or should we give some kind of communication that says, these are the skills that need to be covered before they enter first grade? So that a parent says, I only want the half-day, but my child's thriving. Well, here's what they have to do. Are they really thriving? So that was another option we came up with, that way people could have their children pace it the way you want, but be aware that they somehow have to know this by the time they get to first grade. So there's a lot of good discussion from the committee. We have an excellent committee. So.
Right from again. As a kindergarten teacher, both full day and half day, we also see a lot of transition issues with the children. And about 11 o'clock, some of the kids who get anxious about the bus, the transition, they're tired, and they cry, they worry about it. Am I going to Greenwood today? Am I going to Montessori today? And that causes a lot of anxiety in the kids. And I'm sure that probably when they get there, it's, fine and they're happy. But that transition really eats into the school day at Blueberry Center, Wolf Swamp, because a lot of the kids are very, very anxious in the bus ride or the carpool, in the lunch. When we have the kids full day, we have them eat with their peers and then they rest. And there was a huge study at UMass saying that after they have that rest time, their brains are just ready to go for the afternoon. And if your child's going to another program, they're not going to rest. So that's just another plug for the full day.
My name is Juan, and I have 2 kids, and one kid goes to the half-day program in Blueberry Hill, and my son is just 2 years old. I have something to say about, I know there are some parents, they may think their kids are advanced, but to me, I really want to send my kid to a full-day program. But at that time, we didn't win the lottery. So even though we can afford it, even though we really want to go it, but we still didn't get it. So, for this debate, I know people have different opinions. But, I think there should be a bottom line for this change, which will be that after this change, we should really modify this lottery system. I think for any parent, if they want to send the kids to a full-day program, they should be able to do it, because they would like to fund this program. I know I have a lot of friends who has a very strong intention to send the kids to the full-day program. They either be the first generation, like the new immigrants. We are the first generation in the U.S. So we really want our kids to get into this community, to make them not feel differently from other kids. So, but as parents, we can't give them such an opportunity, but we think school can. And also my kids, they have, this is my personal experience. My kid goes to, in the morning, she goes to the Blueberry Hill School with Mrs. Murphy. In the afternoon, she goes to the Longmeadow Montessori, but she told me she really liked the public school. So we have very strong intention to send our kids to the full day public school, but we just couldn't get it. So,
Okay.
Can you push it to?
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Thank you. And welcome to Longmeadow. We like having you.
Hi, I'm Laura Gebhardt, and we've had 2 kids do half-day at Wolf Swamp and supplemented, and we have a 3rd coming up. My question is actually, now that you're just staying with, either get morning or the afternoon for a half-day for the people who choose to do a half-day or get the lottery, whatever. Without switching now, I know those afternoon kids have something like 10 less days, just with regular half-days, with the early releases, with all the stuff. How is that equitable, and would that change? Because it seems like 10 days is a good percentage of the 180 days. So is there any, I know people didn't like the swapping, and I agree, it's kind of good to kind of get your schedule set. But those afternoon kids seem to really be at a deficit,
Okay.
like in terms of time.
Wasn't aware of that. Principals, any thoughts on that?
That's true.
Yeah, like,
I'll go here.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's quite 10 days, but it's definitely the parent conference days, the Thanksgiving. What we do on early release days is the kids come, they're usually there for 2.5 hours. They don't go to specials that day, so they're in the classroom. So it's not quite, they're missing, but it's still probably close to, I would say, 8 days that they miss. Well, the snow,
Right.
and last year when we first did it, so we thought that the 2-hour delays, if there's 2-hour delay, you don't come to morning kindergarten, but last year we didn't have any 2-hour delays, so we were hoping that it would even itself out, but it was one of those years that it didn't last year.
That's just gonna stay regardless. I mean, if it, because it seems like, I mean, obviously you don't really have a choice about whether you get morning or afternoon. You can request, but then, you get the afternoon, and now you have the Common Core, which is so much more, and even though they need more time, they're getting less time, and then the afternoon kids are even getting less time. It just seems.
I can bring it
I don't
back to
know.
the team, but I'm sure it won't be popular with parents, but you could alternate your early release days. So sometimes the students can, I know.
And I don't want to
later.
create a problem. I'm just thinking like
What's
our
your
third
name
one, if we
again,
get-
please? An address?
I'm gonna go hide, but I just, I mean, we wouldn't be happy to have that much less time. It just doesn't
Yeah.
seem fair.
Okay,
So it's just-
well, we'll try and see what we can do about that. Thank you. Good point.
Hi, I sent an email this week. I'm Melissa Cebulski. And I come at this also from the developmental point, so I was so happy to hear that from two of the others. I have a little boy who's coming in. He's already coming in on an IEP. And these are our youngest and our littlest kids, and so many of them, some of their issues really are just age and development. And I wonder if you have considered extra resources that might be needed for some of these kids who may not be reaching these standards. Will there be an increase in speech and resource room and OT, those sorts of services? Have you considered that there might be an increased need for those and how you would account for those?
We talked about it. Most of the students have already been identified through early intervention and have been receiving services, so we're aware of how many hours they're getting and what they're coming into kindergarten with. It'll probably be people that move into town or a couple unexpected, but we think we have a very good handle on the students that would have to be serviced.
Okay, because I imagine that if so many are coming in with these increased standards, so many kids who are just new to school entirely, their needs might not even be known yet. So that might be a big surprise.
There are always some,
Right.
always.
And what becomes of the little ones who are not going to meet these much more rigorous standards? What's going to become of them at the end of the year? And I'm curious, as I know that the standards have already increased, have you seen kids who just aren't meeting these new standards, and what becomes of them in June?
I'll let you answer that, but first, that's why we have the literacy specialists, the math coaches, the math specialists in place. We're trying to use this model, RTI, response to intervention, that we get them before they end up in special education, that we get them the support as soon as they start failing. And that's why I think those positions are so critical to maintain. The kindergarten would actually get far more resources if it went to full day, because the expectations would be raised. But teachers, do you have anything to add?
I was going to say the response to intervention is what we're seeing. And you know what? In any class, there's always going to be kids that, aren't going to reach the top bar.
He's brilliant, for the record. And adorable.
Karen, let me reiterate what Karen said. I'm getting signals from LCTV. That RTI is the way that we're addressing that. You always have some students that have gaps, and we deal with that. But that with this RTI in place, that we're able to help more students not fall through the cracks, prevent them from falling through the cracks.
Hi, another Amy.
Wow.
I just wanted to, I wasn't going to speak because I don't like doing this, but I wanted to speak, kind of add to what Melissa just said, just with a little personal story. I have a daughter who is in 2nd grade now at Center, and she started kindergarten and didn't even know all of her letters. And a wise woman told me once, don't worry, she's fine. And I kind of knew she was fine too. And I just knew that her brain just wasn't ready for it, and she wasn't into it. She doesn't care. She really didn't care. She's reading at above level now, and she was in a half-day program. And she's at above level now because it clicked. She just said, oh, it clicked. So my concern has been constantly that we're so standard-based and testing-based, and we're forgetting to remember that it's teaching them to love learning and to let them be imaginative and to open their brains. And I'm just so sad tonight, and that's just all I have to add.
Well, I'm sorry that you missed the message love of learning, because we want students to absolutely love it. We don't want first, second, third grade to be such a pressure. My story is the exact opposite of yours. My niece Carrie wasn't reading. Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, they kept saying it was developmental, it would click. At the end of second grade, the child wasn't reading. She never caught up. So if she had been picked up with an RTI program in kindergarten, it would have made the world a difference. But we're doing this to make sure that children enjoy the schools. When I go to the kindergartens, I love visiting. They're having fun. No matter what they're doing, they're having fun. Those are the classrooms to go to. The teachers are talking about the stress level because they know they can do it and not stress the kids. They just need the time to do it.
Right. And I don't disagree with that, although I prefer a half-day program. But I don't disagree with that. I feel like we're focusing on, I know the teacher, I do support the teachers, and I've seen them all in action, and I know they have a love of teaching, and they want the kids to have that love of learning. And I will say that my daughter did get to where she is because they did identify that, and they did send her to the reading specialist, and they did help her out, and it's been a great experience, and she's loved it. But the first thing you mentioned, cutting, was that help. And it just, I don't know, I think I'd rather have a half-day program and have her get that help than cut that.
But
I mean,
keep
this
in
is
mind,
what our kids, especially if they're going in, I mean, my kids are both older starting school out of choice. Well, one of them, my daughter wasn't, she was in November. But I have a son who's going to be 6 when he starts kindergarten, and I'm happy about that. But some people, one, don't have that choice, haven't made that choice, so you're getting kids who are just 5, and they are going to need the help, whether they're going to Montessori or not. Maybe some of them won't, but if we're looking to pay, which I believe that if the state's going to demand that we take their curriculum, then then they should offer grants to everyone.
They should.
And I know that's not your problem. I'm sure if you could get them to see it that way, you would. But it's just frustrating. It seems very without thought, really, of not on your part. I know you guys are trying to just follow along with the directive you've been given, but I guess it's the directive you've been given that I'm questioning, the Common Core. I'm questioning that rigorous. I mean, we've had a half-day program in Longmeadow forever, and we have great test scores. We're better than most.
Right.
So I guess I'm wondering how 2.5 more hours is going to make our test scores that much better.
I'm not as worried about the test scores as making sure our students remain competitive with other communities and with other states. Our students do exceptionally well, the colleges they go to, as well as the jobs that they take on. So I think they have a love of learning when they leave here. Their community is civically minded. We see wonderful results of our K through 12, and the fact the high school students do so well. I think just making sure the little ones are okay when they enter, which is why the focus has been on this RTI, to make sure that every child loves coming to school and can succeed. But I also, and when you said it was sad that those would be the first things to cut, I also want you to remember to say, I can't stand before you and say that I won't come forward with supporting a fee. So I want to be perfectly honest about that. If we go through this budget and we cannot find money, I would prefer to keep supports than I would to go forward without a fee.
Right.
So.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Jeff Klotz, 487 Converse. Y'all didn't think I'd bring my kids here and not talk. Let's step a little bit into the distance. Okay, as far as I can see it, people say it's a done deal. People say there's a possibility of inequality. People say how are we going to pay for it? I want to assume, for the sake of conversation, that it goes forth, and I want to assume. I had a conversation with Paul, the director of finance of the town. There's 3 possibilities. We Prop 2.5 approve it, we don't approve it, and we find money for it by cutting things, or we don't Prop approve it, we don't find money, and we are not in compliance with the state mandate. So we have to find the money. If we go for this, and my question is, what is your plan for educating the town as to the benefit? So that people who may not have the resources to pay and may not want to apply for a grant, is there a plan to present to the town why this would be good? Because right now you have a very motivated base here of people, but that's because it affects us.
Well, I hope you will keep watching this. The plan has been to educate people, and you're the first group we need to educate. The committee has done study and gathered information. This is the second forum, and it was an unexpected forum because when we got into the curriculum, we said we need to meet with the parents again because this is overwhelming information that needs to be shared. We have another forum in January. Also, I think as budget season arises, it's very important for you to be involved. It's on cable TV. The school committee will be discussing at meetings. I'll be doing budget presentations. I go to the select board, the finance committee, the school committee, and we bring forward what the budget is and what the costs are. But at that time, there's also a budget hearing so that people can come and speak. But during that time, I urge kindergarten parents to be involved. Because if you come and you voice your opinions, people do listen, especially to the select board. So, because they ultimately will be the ones supporting our budget or opposing it.
Hi.
Hello.
Good evening. Kevin Maltby on Viscount Road. Couple of questions. One, is this for next year?
Yes.
Okay. And if we have a child that's at Blueberry now, we got a younger child that's coming up, is there going to be a redistricting or anything along those lines, or are we going to end up? And if there is a redistricting, will we be able to send both our kids to the same school because we're grandfathered in?
They're excellent questions. Michael Clark is thinking about whether or not there should be redistricting done. So as soon as he makes his decision. It's a critical question, and I'm teasing because Michael knows it's going to be awful if we have to do this. But right now, Blueberry's enrollment is up. You have Glenbrook's, which is dropping, and Williams, which is up. So at some point, either this year or next year, we have to look at redistricting, and we have to decide. But in terms of those questions, who's grandfathered, all of that will have to be decided.
Will that be decided in advance of the program, or is it we put the program in place and then we make those decisions? Because that's important.
I don't know because it would depend. It's very important, and we'll bring that back to the school committee and talk about it. We'd need a decision on when the redistricting committee is meeting in order to answer that question.
And in terms of Blueberry Hill, I couldn't help but notice I didn't see any extra classrooms. And so what are we going to do about accommodating space of 3 full-time kindergarten classrooms?
Yeah, I think the only suggestion I have is there are 2 possibilities. Have the overflow attend another elementary school, or have 3 sections with 25 kids in it, but you have 3 adults. So you have a ratio of 8 adults, 8 students to 1 adult. You put in 2 paras with the teacher. That's the only way I can see to leave them in district right now.
Is there another room that would be taken up, like an arts room, like a music room?
It's another possibility.
That you would lose, like the art room or the music room?
You could do that. You could come up with we're looking at every possible option we can. But that again goes back to when will we look at redistricting.
Okay.
So, but they're good questions and they need to be answered.
Thank you.
But to clarify, you're going to be looking at redistricting no matter what. Like
Yes.
Outside of this whole kindergarten conversation, you have to look at redistricting anyways.
Yes.
Be clear.
The question is, do we need to look at redistricting? Yes, we do. Yes.
Clarifying one thing you said the select board has the
Can you come to the mic? So, thanks. People at home can't hear the questions if we're not at the mics.
Jeff Klotz, 487 Converse. Clarifying what you said, you said, and correct me if I'm quoting you incorrectly, the select board controls the budget?
The select board makes recommendations on the budget. So for example, when they did not recommend that we get that 300,000, it had to go onto a warrant for a vote.
Right.
So they control whether or not they support our budget. Had they taken that money as they eventually did out of the cash that they had, we wouldn't have had to go for a vote.
Okay, this state mandate exceeds the 2.5%, Prop 2.5. Odds are it will go to a warrant, in which case the legislator, the town people, control this. And again, I get back to what type of education is being done for the town so that the town votes, so that the actions reflect the town's wishes. Does the town want increased property taxes, or is it going to be a fee-based educational system in this town? I mean,
and all that's going to play out budget season, so you're suggesting it might come to the point where it's a warrant article.
I would predict future that way, yes.
Okay, so if it goes that route, that's when particularly it's important for people to be at town meeting.
I mean, I think we all can write our townspeople, and he'll say, okay, this is 90 people, or 3 times 90, 270 people with kids at that age.
When you
And
get
there's
a
the rest of the
turnout
town.
like this, and you get the response we did to the survey, it's a hot topic. You never get a survey with 340 respondents. So I think that if people were involved in letting the select board know that they would prefer to have no fees charged, I think you might get a response.
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Michael Clark. I'm chair of the school committee. And I just wanted to actually respond to that because I think that it's an important question about how this budget process is going to work out. And Marie did a good job of kind of describing it. And just to let everybody know, we go through a process every single year where we build a budget to a directive that's issued by the town manager and select board. This year's budget directive asked us to provide a level service budget, which means that we have to pay for all of our contractual increases, which we have a 2% increase guaranteed to teachers through their contract. They have step increases for how long they've been here. And then they get additional money for getting continuing education. So in total, that's about an $850,000 increase for next year. We're looking at that. In addition, we're talking about the cost of full-day kindergarten. And so to your point, yes, that would exceed the 2.5% that the town is legally allowed to raise taxes, not taking into account the contractual obligations that the town has to pay. And so the way that this would work would be, like you described, a 2.5% override. And the way an override would work, at least from a school committee perspective, and I will be very clear that I've actually, the only reason I'm here is to listen to what you're saying, and I'm waiting on a recommendation just like you are. But the reason that, or the way that this would happen would be that the school committee would say that kindergarten, or any increase that we were looking for, whether it was something like kindergarten or whether it was another program or whether it was building an additional wing to a school, we would make that clear it was a priority to the community. We would make it clear that it was a priority to the finance committee and select board. We'd ask them to support us in bringing forward a 2.5% override, at which point they have the ability to say, well, we don't support you, we don't agree with that, and then we'd go through the same process we went through last year where we asked the town to come to town meeting and support an amendment to the budget, or we would ask the communities to submit a sponsored warrant article that the select board would vote on to increase taxes above 2.5%, at which point town meeting would vote on it, and then it would actually go to a ballot, and it would be on the election ballot in June. That being said, the select board and the school committee have met. We've met several times. And the one clear consensus that we've drawn is, as of right now, the plan is to try to balance the budget without seeking an override. But, like you said, who knows? And especially when we're dealing with a question of full-day kindergarten, that clearly exceeds those costs. I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you that from a process perspective, we're going to try everything we can on a committee level to convince our colleagues that if this is the route that we take, we ask them for their support. And then we'll bring it to you guys for support as well. So that's my spiel. Sorry. I'm not going to interrupt anymore.
Hello.
Jennifer Hallahan, a Blueberry parent, and mine is a financial question. I'd also like to say that I have a child in Miss O'Brien's all day, and it is a magical classroom. It's a wonderful classroom. But mine is on the financial end. Has anything been gone after on the federal level? And I realize that economically we are not the first community to get anything on this level, but if there is an inequality in the all-day, has that been approached? Has that been something that you read all the time in the newspaper about the communities that get things that are somewhat of a jump start? And then they are able to absorb it into their budget. Has that been explored? Is that something that's even accessible to us?
We looked to partner with Holyoke earlier in the year on a grant that would bring in money that we could do something to bring more support to the district, but we didn't fit the criteria because Holyoke missed one of the criteria. So we agreed in the future. We're trying to partner with some of the city schools who have the socioeconomic numbers that could bring us money. We're willing to do the work and we're willing to do whatever we can so that we can benefit from that as well. So we're hoping to develop a good partnership there. We signed up for Race to the Top. This is a Race to the Top district that was supposed to bring in revenue, brought in next to nothing. So steps have been taken. It's again that most of the federal money goes to needy districts. That's just the reality.
Okay.
If you're in what's perceived well-to-do, people are hardworking. It's not like money's flush in every single house, but it's perceived as a well-to-do district, well-educated. We just are not on their radar screen. No matter how much we say you're leaving us out, this isn't fair.
Okay. Now it sort of parallels your question then. Is there anything as a community we can do to advance that? Can we as a community,
I can answer that question for you in January.
Okay.
And I don't mean to be vague tonight, but we are opening up budget season. December, we really get into it. So come to our January meeting. We'll let you know the fiscal realities of where we're at. We'll talk about what parents could do if they wanted to take this to the next level. So I'll have more information for you at that time.
Okay, and these partnerships then, would it entail the group, when you were saying when you were looking to partner up with the city of Holyoke, or would it entail the children actually physically getting together at some points too, or would it be more on an academic level?
Probably be on the teacher level to start with. It would be sharing curriculum and best practices. It would be working with ELL populations, things like that. So that's what they're looking for right now, is to see that would be our goal, because we think we could get a grant for something of that. Because we're high achieving, we could probably do that in partnering going in to help a city school.
Okay.
We don't know. It's the grants are cumbersome. They're hundreds and hundreds of pages long. In the criteria, one little piece of paper can throw you out of the running, and that's what happened with this last grant that Kelly proposed. It was a great grant.
Okay, and then on the level of where is it an equal education? The town of Longmeadow gets no credit for that in the fact that there is an inequality in Western Mass?
Nope.
Okay.
No, we're seen as the shining star of Western Mass, which is wonderful. That it's such an outstanding district, but it's unfortunate they do not support financially your best districts.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's try and sum up. I appreciate you coming. This is a tough topic. I think we all want what's best for the children. Be assured that we did read through every single comment. I've read every single one, and we're taking those to heart. The committee will be shared the survey results as we get to our next meeting. We also will be providing more feedback as we go on. The January meeting will be the next one. I forget the date. Does anyone remember? But with the next meeting, we'll go through what the budget looks like, what we're proposing, and you can also be following school committee, because the committee will reconvene. We're going to come up with recommendations in a report. We'll present that to the school committee. We'll let you know when that's happening, and then we'll have another follow-up parent meeting for you. Okay? Okay. Thank you very, very much for coming. I appreciate your interest.